And that's like another scenario where like the foundations are just going to be like so important. If you can flip up, but you can't flip up the same as somebody else, when you do it at the same time, it's not going to look the same. And it might not even be at the same time because of like different like pathway rotation stuff. I'll say it again just to repeat it because I think it's important. It's super easy to be a good cymbal player, but it starts to become difficult when one, you take into account cymbal lines. It's going to be a lot harder to be a good cymbal line because everybody needs to move at the same time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Flip Up Podcast. Today we are joined with another guest. We are here with Jimmy Caupp from Rhythm X and Madison Scouts.
Hello, thank you for having me on.
Definitely. So a little bit about Jimmy, just kind of briefly. Uh, we marched together. Me and Lucas both marched with him at Madison Scouts in 2018. So that's sort of where this connection ties together. And which actually brings up the first thing we're going to talk about is we want to talk about a little bit about Madison Scouts and sort of the culture of the ensemble, because in 2015, right, Scouts brought back their cymbal line, and Jimmy's been there since the beginning of when they brought it back to when they cut it back in 2019. And, obviously Scouts has their cymbal line back, but yeah, let's just go ahead and talk about that a little bit. So, Jimmy, if you want to just sort of talk about, the history and like your experience from the beginning to the downfall, I guess.
Okay, so I guess to start at the beginning, it was like senior year of high school, and I was getting ready to figure out like, okay, I wanted to keep on playing cymbals, so I was trying to start to figure out what I wanted to do. The first place I actually wanted to march was Spirit of Atlanta for like what was it, probably like 13 to like 14. I watched those videos all the time.
Dude,
I
those are
was
great videos.
yeah, those are awesome symbol lines. And so that was like definitely where I wanted to end up marching. And right around the time that I was trying to like convince my parents to let me go down to Georgia and not doing a very good job of it, um, I got a message from my cymbal tech from high school, like Matt Polis, and he was asking me like, "Hey, are you still going to go audition for Spirit?" I'm like, "Yeah, I really want to." And he's like, "Okay, don't." And then he told me that like Scouts was bringing their symbol line back, and for me that was just like almost like perfect because it was like much closer to home. He was going to be the cymbal tech, and I was very familiar with him because he taught me for like 3 years in high school. And the other thing was that, like, in 2013, my high school actually hosted the Scouts when they came to Dayton. And, like, I had never seen drum corps before at the time. I had no idea what it was. I was, like, thinking, like, dang, these guys are really cool. I wish they had a cymbal line. And, like, everybody was, like, and my cymbal line at the time was, like, saying that. So it ended up just being, like, the perfect combination of things. Ended up going out and trying out in 2015 and made the line and stuck with it for all my years. It was a great time.
Yeah, definitely. Oh yeah, sorry, but this kind of also because you were graduating right from high school at the time, right?
Yeah. And to be honest, I had no idea what drum corps was going into it. I just wanted to play cymbals, and I did not know what I was signing myself for. But it was definitely experience worth having.
Yeah, and that year was like a fantastic year for the Scouts cymbal line. First year back, and you came out swinging. Like, I remember Jan and I talked about this, but that show is like, or that symbol line is like the symbol line that we watched over and over again, trying to figure out every little trick and visual, just because it was just so amazing to see.
Yeah, that was definitely like one of our goals was like, all right, we're coming back, and if we're going to do this thing, we're going to do it right, and we're going to be really good, and everybody's going to think we're really good. And it seems like we were very successful just based off of what I've heard about that
Hmm.
after the fact. which and it was always like a really cool thing to hear was people coming into auditions the following years like saying that like oh yeah 15 and like later years like oh yeah 16 and like hearing that again and again it was just really awesome. um but yeah, that was something that the techs kind of like decided from the beginning and was like we're going to be really good and we were all like okay.
And it
uh
worked.
You also
uh
graduated from high school. What were some of the hardest things, because drum corps was just kind of this like ground, like, what the heck, and for cymbals especially, like, what were some of the things you kind of struggled with? Because yeah, also because we had Brian on the podcast recently, he was already a vet. What was it like just coming in as a rookie?
um It was a very interesting dynamic, specifically from like the rookie thing. That's like um, so high school. I played cymbals from freshman year to senior year, obviously. By the end, I was like section leader. The last year, we didn't really have like a steady, like constant cymbal tech, so I was kind of filling that shoes a little bit as well, especially closer like to the winter season. So it went from just like me being like in charge of what I had going on in the cymbal program at high school, kind of, to just like going into this like brand new territory. And I had no idea really what to expect. And there were other like Brian, I think, was the only person who had drum corps experience. So just having like to look to him to figure out how the ins and outs of how to successfully navigate it. And so that was what that was. It was mostly good. I think for me, and 15 was definitely a growing year. In terms of how to be a good member. Like I feel pretty confident that like in high school I was a pretty good cymbal player and then I started marching like independent world and obviously I continued to grow as a cymbal player. But that first year was where I had to really grow and figure out how to be like a good like just marching member maybe. And I think the biggest thing that I had to learn was approach, your approach to your instrument, your rehearsal, and everything. Like it had to like go way, way up for me, and that's not anything that I might not have even learned it that season, to be honest. Like, uh, coming back in 16, uh, I was like told like, wait, why are you like? It's great that you're back, but we honestly didn't expect that you were going to come audition again because of like how hard of a time we gave you last
Jeez.
year. Yeah, I got my butt handed to me. Um, and I don't know what it was yet. Maybe it was that kind of like new step into like back into the shoes of a rookie, but there were just like certain things that I just like didn't have enough detail to or like didn't care enough about. Like obviously I wanted to be good, but like there was like a process to it that I hadn't gotten down yet.
Yeah, when we marched scouts, Lucas can vouch the same way. But when we were at scouts, we were like, holy crap, like we were shaking. We are like, yo, we're gonna get our asses handed to us. We're
Oh,
gonna get
100%.
butts whooped. But no, it's exactly what you're saying in correlations to like the vets. The best thing you can do as a rookie is, just follow the example. So that's exactly what we did. We followed what Jimmy did. We followed what Ben and Connor did. Like all of them have 4 to 5 years of, DCI experience. And then here we were, first years, like the best thing we could have done was just, copy exactly what you guys did.
Yeah, and in the beginning when we first got there, like Jimmy will remember this. We came in and it was like the first 2 weeks of spring training. We just didn't say a word. We were just so quiet the whole time, just like always watching, trying to make sure we didn't screw anything up. And it took us like so long to finally come out of our shells just because the whole time we were afraid of getting our butts whooped.
Yeah, we were trying to find the vibe of, what was going on. So
Mhm.
Yeah, you two were some quiet lads all throughout the audition season, and then, yeah, like it took forever. I remember specifically what was that laundry day that you had that like protein powder. I
Oh
feel
yeah,
like that was the day that you just like exploded
we
out of your
broke that
shells.
day.
Everybody's like, "What's going on with these guys?"
Yeah, for more context on the protein powder, the way, I mean, based on these podcasts, we're still kind of like, it's just like we're talking about, we're still kind of opening up out of our shell. But I guess story time, back in Scouts, we got this like protein powder. And the way we sort of broke our shell was we just engulfed it as if it was like brownie or something like that. And then, we got buff, man. I don't know.
Yeah, it was just like a random purchase. Jaden was like, "Yo, let's get this protein powder." I was like, "Okay, yeah, sure. It's spring training. We're gonna need to build a ton of muscle. Cymbals are heavy." So we brought it back. We get back to we're staying in cabins for scouts, and we get back and we realize we didn't have any like shakers or bottles or pretty much any cups to put it in beside our jug. So we decided to just eat the powder by itself. We were just chewing it down like pouring water down our throats while we had the powder in there. And something just clicked where we kind of just, I don't know, we lost it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I still have that like a video or something. You just had it all over your face.
Dude, we're getting those gains. Must have worked.
Yeah, it did work. Uh, where was I? 15, I think, still. But yeah, the theme of 15 was, all right, Jimmy needs to figure it out. Um, and yeah, the techs really like, to their credit, would not let me not figure it out. Um, there's like a couple of specific moments I remember of just like, for some reason I was just being stubborn about like counting during a rep, and I just like didn't. And they're like, okay, well then just go run and come back when you're gonna count during a rep. And I just did a bunch of laps and then came back like was out of breath, could like barely count. I was like, all right, go run again. Like
Oh
coming back,
man.
and I just like, that was always a thing. There's another time where it was actually really funny. I was in the midst of like just not doing my thing the way I needed to be doing it. And the tech comes over and just like it's like yelling, it's like, I just want to look at you and be happy. Which is fair. That's what I would want. I just want to look at a cymbal player, especially if I'm teaching them, and them be good and be like, good, and be happy. But in 16, I came back and I don't know what it was, but maybe just a fresh year. I had a year of DCI. At that time, I also had a year of indoor under my belt. And 16, just like right in the door, just had so much more figured out. So yeah, I can't express enough how important like approach is to like your growth as a player, I guess. Because in 15, I feel like I was like barely climbing, but as soon as I had it figured out in 16, just like shot way up for me as well. It's so important to be committed to the process and committed to what everybody else is doing. I guess I'm trying to think of like more like specific details. Like you need to be aware, you need to be focused, and you need to do that always.
Definitely. So talking about that, I guess something that it kind of correlates, like, with scouts coming back. I think we shared something very similar in the sense, like at George Mason, like, the line's been there, but 2018 was like a whole year of shaping us from like just being like your average sim line to really pushing to be something more than what we were. So we kind of shared something similar in that sense. Like in 2018 at George Mason, it was one of those things where like, you know, like it wasn't to that extent, but like, we were, getting pushed like crazy because, like we were, for one, me and Lucas were both rookies in the ensemble, but it was more so, we were just trying to push things. And I feel like when you're trying to rebuild a culture or like starting up a culture, like that first year is definitely the hardest. Cause when I went to Colts, Oh my God, it was like a breeze. I mean, let alone, let's talk about Mass and Scouts in 2018. Like for us, we're like, dude, we're gonna get our asses handed to us. We're rookies. But next thing you know, this thing is like, we're just coasting. I'm like, this isn't normal. What the hell's going on? Well, when you have like bets in the line, like, I mean, it's like we just did exactly what you guys did, and like it just happened like that. You guys set the example. You guys already had everything built. We were just there to just sort of feed off the pieces. I guess I don't know.
I 100% agree. Like in the very first year, the reason why like they were like so attentive and like so strict with us is just like there was like a sense of urgency. Like we weren't going to do something and not do it well. And that's the same thing that we weren't going to have a symbol line and not be a good symbol line. So there was the urgency, there was the pressure that from the start we have to be good. And then the following year it's like, all right, we did it once. Now we need to do it again. And then I feel like after we accomplished that 2 years in a row, like exactly what you said, it was like almost coasting from there because in 17 we had like the previous 2 years of foundation built and we could just build on top of that and then in 18 build on top of that, and it's so much easier to do that once, like you said, the culture had been set.
Yeah. Uh, sorry, I was leaving space if Lucas, you wanted to say something.
I mean, I feel like everything's been said. Like, definitely the whole thing about Mason and 18. Once everyone's on the same page, it's just smooth sailing from there. But you just have that struggle in the beginning to get everyone on the same page so that everyone's kind of doing the same process, same way, all with like the same mentality. But once you get there, it's just smooth sailing. And that's the foundation. Like Jimmy said, just keep building on the foundation.
So something just kind of small to talk about is we're going to talk about this idea between like approach, right? But let's now talk about the difference between being a good member versus a good symbol player, because I feel like there's so many people out there that are like, good symbol players, but maybe they're not the best in terms of being a member, which sort of correlates maybe to what you were talking about.
Yeah, I would say it is all in that. Maybe to take it a little bit different direction, the difference between like a good symbol player and a good like symbol player in a line um is all about like I think awareness. Um so the way I see it, there's like especially nowadays, I see this a lot like you like tons of young or inexperienced or like new symbol players already like can do like a whole lot of like these crazy visuals that we see people doing, like, and that's like one of the first things that they teach themselves because that's the exciting part, that's the fun part. So it's easy to be a good symbol player, I've always thought. Like you can go out and especially now, I know you two have been talking a lot about like resources on the podcast so far. Like you can go out there and you can watch other symbol lines do it and you can teach yourself how to do those things. But then if you want to be a great like member, you need to be able to apply that in the context of doing it with other people. Um, and that's like another scenario where like the foundations are just going to be like so important because if you can flip up but you can't flip up the same as somebody else, when you do it at the same time it's not going to look the same, and it might not even be at the same time because of like different like pathway rotation stuff. So it's, I'll say it again just to repeat it because I think it's important. It's super easy to be a good symbol player, but it starts to become difficult when one, you take into account symbol lines. It's going to be a lot harder to be a good symbol line because everybody needs to move at the same time. And then that is where like all those basics come in a lot more, I think.
Yeah, could not be said better. I mean, in the mindset of a high school, for example, right? Learn these visuals, and I have them in the book. right? I guess good cymbal player, even though like, high school I was like, it's kind of iffy. But until I joined George Mason, let alone Scouts, and then carrying forward, I did not think about what Lucas was doing when I was flipping up. Like I was so in my own head. When I got open to that world of like, yeah, like use your peripherals, like be a line, not just an individual, that completely changed the way I approach cymbals. Like, yes, be a good cymbal player, like pick up these skills, learn how to juggle, do those things. Yes, that's individual things that you could apply. But the big thing though is the vibe of the line, right? You want to be a good line, not just a good cymbal player.
Yeah, there's like some weird connection that you get with a line after you've been with them for a while. Like when you're able to just know everyone's tendencies, there's like that invisible connection between everyone. And also going back to the whole it's easy to become a good cymbal player. That really ties back to what Brian was saying earlier in the other episode, where he's describing it as the rub, where if there's that rub between the member and the teacher, where it's like they're really good, they can do all the flips and they can do tricks and all this stuff, but they don't have the right mentality. It's just he won't even take them as a teacher because he knows that down the line the season's gonna be tough. Because you need someone that's able to adapt and to understand the mentality.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Cool. So let's go ahead, just because we're talking about scouts, let's just go ahead and finish this off. So 20, we talked briefly about 2016. Let's just go ahead and jump into 2017. So this is when the culture changed from what I remember, because Jimmy was the only vet, right, that came back. Everyone else had either aged out. So this was almost like a reboot, except same text, just it's just you as a member. So
So I guess just to recap a little bit, like what you're talking about with like the membership. So from 2015 to 2016, it was very similar. We had one age out, that was Brian, and then we had Georgie come in and kind of like fill that spot, but the other three was the same. So it's very much a continuation, and Georgie was coming in filling those shoes. The following year, we had two age outs, and one person just decided not to come back. So in 2017, it was just me, and then three vets. Well, no, sorry, rookies. Opposite of that. So yeah, that was an interesting change for me at least because I had started getting like really comfortable with like the same people, and I don't think it affected us at all. Luckily, it would we didn't want it to be like a rebuilding year just because we had new membership, and to everybody's credit, it wasn't. Um, and somehow that year, despite it being new membership, was also the year that we could kind of relax a little bit almost. Because I remember like specifically like okay, so the one tech in 15, 16 that was always on my always watching me, always like trying to make sure I was doing the right thing. It was Jack Borland, and I kind of can like remember specifically like the intensity he had in rehearsal kind of went down a little bit in a good way because like he was definitely like all 4 years incredible tech. I'm really lucky and really glad that I got to work with him for as long as I did. Um, but you could tell that like he like the sense of urgency that I talked about earlier that he had it like 15. All right, we need to like hold this, but it's not like as important because we've already set the foundation. And then like from there, like that sense of urgency relaxed because he was like starting to like, okay, these guys know what they're doing. I can trust them to do their own thing and they're going to be able to execute. So there was an interesting change in the way we rehearsed where it was a little more calm, but we were still producing great results. And that is like I think a goal for any cymbal line to get to. Like if the membership can become a little bit more self-sufficient and control the pace a little bit themselves and still yield incredible results. that is when it becomes really fun to play symbols. Um, and that's something that now when I teach, I look for as well. It's going to sound kind of bad, but I think a symbol tech, like the less you do your job, the better. Um, that's like my goal now is when I teach is to try to cultivate that, like the self-sufficiency so that the students can analyze what they're doing themselves, choose their own path about what they want to do with their book, their visuals, where they need the most rehearsal time, because they're going to know better than I do. But if I and then all I need to do is facilitate and help them get to where they want to be. It's something I forget who said it, but one of my techs over the years said like my main job is like to help you reach your goal instead of thinking about it as like, all right, this is my symbol line I'm teaching and I'm going to make them do this.
Yeah,
It's more about
100%.
this symbol line has this goal, this person has this goal, and I'm going to help them reach that goal. um I guess I got a little sidetracked there. What was the original question? It was about scouts, I remember.
Yeah, I mean, you answered it well in the sense that like what the vibe was in 2017. Like I what I was gonna say earlier was I got to give you guys credits. I mean, well, so you had Bane. Also, real quick for context, because you mentioned who Georgie was. Georgie was all tech at Scouts in 2018, but Jimmy has marched with Georgie basically throughout his whole career from Madison Scouts to Rhythm X. Piece that together, but the Madison Scouts symbol line in 2017, like you guys had like a good resume just going into it. Like you had two people who had prior DCI experience, maybe not from Scouts, but still got DCI experience from two qualified symbol lines, and then you guys had another member who it was similar, like with Matt Polis from high school, where he marched under him in world class, from what I remember. So you guys had that qualifying bubble. You all had the experience. Where in 2015, right, you came from high school.
Yeah, and then yeah, it was a great group of guys. um and I would say like everybody was so committed to like, all right, this is the Madison Scout symbol line, this is what I wanted to do, like maybe even for a couple years now, so I'm going to do it and it's going to be great. Like I remember a specific thing also, just as like an example of the commitment. Like that year, the show design, like we had like a character we were supposed to like fall into, and like whenever we were in uniform, that's what we were doing. And the symbol line like very, very rarely broke character. And like that was just like one small thing that we were just always committed to. And I think that that carried across on everything else. And that was why there was like no like dip in from 16 to 17, because it may have been all new people, but they came in, they knew what they wanted to accomplish, and they were going to.
Nice. Yeah, well, with that, that's all the time we have for this episode, so we're going to wrap it up. Jimmy, same as with Brian, do you have any final words that you'd like to say to the entire symbol community?
Um, Flip fast. Short notes can always be shorter. Don't use too much elbow.
Wow.
Perfect.
Oh, so well said. Wow. Okay. Well, cool. We're gonna end this one off here. Thank you, Jimmy, again. And we'll see you guys in the next podcast episode.
Stay tuned.